Let's start with the basic of what we are going to discuss today, the data-driven decision making. What exactly it is?
Apart from that, the main struggle which we see is getting the clean and the completeness of the data. That is where most of the organizations struggle.
Any other example which comes to your mind where the data-driven decision making was used and it worked? A business analyst, as you mentioned, is basically the interface with the client. So they understand what is expected. Now then business analysts take it further and then they interact with obviously the data team. So how does that communication happen? What is the next step? Can we make any kind of chart, or making a chart makes a difference?
The core competency of business analysts is to be neutral and present whatever information is coming from our data as is. It should be like a mirror image.
Now let's look at from the client side. For clients to make proper, neutral, data-driven decisions, what are the roadblocks they have? There could also be a problem of if the data itself is conflicting. Right? That could also be a problem. So how do you deal with the conflicting data? There could be a possibility that the data-driven decisions, either it goes to too large extent and becomes analysis paralysis, or it goes to the other extreme. So how can people have a balance where it is still rigorous, but it doesn't fall into analysis paralysis? Because that could be a real challenge, real problem. Good morning, good evening. Welcome to a brand new episode of FutureForward, a podcast series by Techcanvass on artificial intelligence, business analysis, and product management. In today's episode, we're going to talk about something which is very important. Okay, so before we begin the podcast, let me tell you something which former CEO of Netscape once mentioned to his team. That if you have data, let's analyze it. And if all we have is opinion, then let's go with mine. So this sounds funny, but actually this is something which is representative of what's happening in most of the boardrooms. Decisions are not being made based on data and the insights, but it's rather being made to suit somebody else's opinion. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about what is data-driven decision and how does it make sense to make data-driven decisions and how is it made. To talk about that, we have Priyank Aneja. He has over 18 years of experience in BI, data analysis, quality, and database administration with strong analytical and process-driven expertise. He has demonstrated strong business acumen with the ability to identify patterns and deliver actionable insights. Let's welcome Priyank. Hi, Priyank.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And good morning and good evening to everyone who is watching this podcast.
Great. So I just talked about you a little bit. So if you can tell a little more about your professional background.
Okay. So professionally, I'm working with Capgemini for almost more than a decade now. It's been 13 years. And currently I'm having almost 18 years of experience. So talking about data analytics, so my journey actually starts with curiosity instead of coding. So, when I was doing my PGP, so I was more inclined towards data, numbers rather than coding. So I got the confidence then and there itself because 59 students from my batch went into tech side where I was the only one who, came into the data part. So that's the reason why I chose database administrator. Back then in 2006-7, I started my journey with a startup. That time we don't, use these kind of terms of startups and all that thing, but that taught me a lot of things. I started creating database there and then eventually start representing them into reports using VB and .NET. And back in 2011 somewhere we started my journey actually migrated from those database to analytics, where I was first introduced to a tool called Click View from Click, and that's how I start creating reports and dashboards and came here today.
Great. So let's start with the basic of what we are going to discuss today, the data-driven decision making. What exactly it is?
So data driven decision making is taking decision with the help of or supporting with the facts. So if anyone is taking a decision, there's a saying that without data you're just another person with opinion. So the most of the things we see in the boardrooms as well. So if leaders are taking decision without any support of data, that is not going to flow, or get them more success, right? So data driven decision making is basically with the help of data, supports the data. It's like uh, instead of saying that okay, I run a campaign management which gives us a good customer engagement, rather than I should say that okay, this campaign management will earn us 20% more customer satisfaction. So that 20% and just the opinion makes a difference.
Correct. So when we are talking about data-driven decision making, what do you think are the key elements? It's obviously the data, that is one part. What else are more significant here?
See, as a phrase says that today in today's world, data is the oil for the organization, and I believe that it's a heart of the organization because uh, without data we are any organization cannot take or work, right? So that's a more important and crucial part. Apart from that, the main struggle which we see is the getting the clean and the completeness of the data. That is where most of the organizations struggle. If you're not getting a clean or a complete data which we can rely on, which should be used to do the business analysis or support the decision, so we cannot take any sort of decision, or those decision may not be fruitful for us. So that is another thing. Second is the culture. Now in organization generally people go with their own perception, as you also highlighted in your opening statement, that if someone is liking something, so let's go with their opinion instead. So sometimes we have to think apart from that. We need to look into the data and need to understand what the data says. And the third thing is question back. Now, when number says something, you need to question back, why is that happening? So that culture also we have to bring in to, get the complete insights from that data.
Right. So you mentioned like if an organization has to start on the journey of being more data driven, you already mentioned three things. One, the data, that is the most important part. Then there's a culture. And then also related to a culture is that the habit of asking questions as to why something is happening. Are there any other things which comes to your mind if a journey to a data-driven organization is to be made?
Right. So when a company starts utilizing data to take decisions, first thing is they have to align their objectives very clearly, and the goals has to be aligned with that. So those things has to be very clearly come out, and you need to ask something. Let's take an example that if you wanted to improvise your sales, so it has to be very very precisely come out that this is our objective, which has to go in alignment with the strategy of the business. And to measure that, we have to define smart goals, very specific, measurable, time bound, you can say relatable, and testable, right? So it has to be smart. And when we get the insight and we take the action, it has to be a continuous improvement. We cannot say that okay, we improvise our customer engagement by 10%, then we'll stop there. No, we have to revise that to bring it to 15%, 20%. So it's a continuous improvement. So these are the three other elements which I would suggest to have.
Yeah. So you mentioned about the strategy linking to the metrics, the measurable value.
Okay.
But there is something called vanity metrics. What is it, and is it good, not so good?
I would say it's a great question. Vanity metrics, if your data is telling you something, sometimes we just simply go with what data says. Okay, we don't ask our question back. Let me give a very basic example. Let's say that our sales is dropped in a particular region, and when we analyze the data, we got to know that okay, it is because of customer engagement, it is getting down, and we straight away say that okay, let's stop our marketing campaign there. Let's not invest. Maybe we'll after some time we'll do that. But when we actually and logically see, it could be a lead competitor who have launched a market campaign before us, and because of that there is a shift happen. So instead of stopping our market campaign, we should invest more. Instead, we should offer proactive discounts to our customers so that we can get them back, retain them, right? So that's the those are the things which we need to also think. So we should not go with what data only says. It comes with experience, all that thing. So we need to think all those aspects. We should not blindly focus on what data says and take the decisions on. So that's my take.
Correct. So let's say, for example, talk about a project, specific initiative with a project. You're given one example, but any other example which comes to your mind where the data-driven decision making was used and it worked, and what is the learning from that?
Okay, so I'll give an example. Like we were working with a customer on a particular project wherein they were facing a lot of issues from the customer satisfaction point of view, and they wanted to analyze that basically why all that is happening. So when we collated their data and analyzed it and dig in further, we also asked them to that we'll collect some more data related to your team member as well, so that we can also holistically see from 360-degree angle that what are the causes we are getting that. So we actually got to know there are three main elements related to their team. It was fairly new team, mix of you can say one or two senior resources. What we got to know is their team was not efficient enough to first time close their problem statements. That was one element which come up, and the reason could be like they were not having the scripts ready upfront. So we got to know that okay, they need to improvise their scripts, which generally as an level one ticket come to them. Second is their skill set. Since it was a amalgamation of very less senior folks and higher side of junior folks, so the lack of training exposure was missing. So we also proposed them that okay, they need to come up with some training program so that they can enhance their skills, and also ask them to form a team where one lead should be there who can help them out then and there to solve their problems. So that's where how we understand, and it worked well for them. So the customer retention got improved significantly within 3 months from around 20%, and then they continuously improve on that, and I guess they are happy now.
Okay. So one follow-up question. So when you talk about data-driven decisions, is it about visualization only, or it is a little more than that?
Okay. So visualization is basically just to represent the data in a graphical manner. Okay. Now it could be like any reports, dashboards, scoreboards we can have. If to just reports just only tell you how the pattern looks like and all that thing, but if you don't correlate with multiple factors, right? Then you will not be able to get the insights out of it. It will be just the patterns or the you can see the the trend of the data which comes. So we need to think as an BA, business analyst, the core competency is to correlate one element with multiple factors to get a holistic understanding, the insights basically. So the data only gives you that one thing. Second thing, you also need to ask question. So if your sale is showing a dip of 10%, why that dip is coming? What is triggering that dip? You need to dig in further to understand whether it is a product issue. Is it a customer preferences are changing? It is your team's incompetency that they're not able to sell those products, or they're not even actually aware of the product, features as well. Because customer will come and ask the feature. If you're not able to tell them properly, it will be a problem. So to get that, we need to dig in further. So asking question back is very, very important.
So when somebody, let's say a professional who is helping client make decisions based on data, so how the whole initiative will start? Is it from the strategy which comes from the board or the directors, or it is something which is created based on what the customer wants? How does it start?
Okay. So it definitely starts from the board because strategy is a top-down, follows the top-down approach. So strategy, obviously, leaders will build, and then it goes to the second layer, and then operational leaders will see and decide how it needs to be aligned at an every department within the organization. And business analyst role is in the middle, basically, where it needs to interact with the top leaders and also with the bottom layers where data resides and the technical people. So that's how it goes. So definitely it has to be in alignment with the strategy, right? Second thing is, we also need to look at what customer prefer, what is their expectation also, because ultimately what all the things we are doing is to satisfy our customers, because if we are able to satisfy them, we will be able to retain them, and its whole process goes that way. So both the things. I'll give you a very basic example. Look at Amazon, how they have come up with it. Was just a basic book selling store, online book selling store in US, and what they did extra is they started capturing the data, the feedback from the customers, and they simply asked 2 or 3 questions: what extra you need from us, where can you can we can provide you any help there, whether you need grocery, you tell us, we'll provide that. So that's how they started. And when they got the feedback, they collaborated with local retailers and start sending the stuff to them. What happened is they created a e-commerce environment within that city or state where they didn't invested much, rather they just collaborated with local retailers, and now they are selling each and everything. They have a huge e-commerce setup across globe. So it goes that way.
So a business analyst, as you mentioned, it basically the interface with the client, so they understand what is expected.
Correct.
Now then business analysts take it further, and then they interact with obviously the data team, right? So how does that communication happen? What is the next step?
So BA's core competency is to interact with both the layers, the top management, because they need to convince them if there's any. Now, in case of Amazon, which I just said, it was business analysts who convinced their management to change the strategy, because now it was the customer preferences are coming first. Their objective was to become a good, online book selling store. But since customers' demands were changing, their expectation was increasing, so they changed the strategies that way. So it is a core competency of business analysts to convince their management if there is any flow they see in the strategy. One thing. Second thing, they also need to pass on those requirements what actually the management want, because they have 10 things in their mind which they wanted to achieve as an objective. So that clear requirement has to be passed on to the data warehouse or the IT people, so that they will build that environment to capture that new data, to so that it should be flexible and flexible enough to cater to the new requirement or the new, upcoming future requirement as well. So that's how BA's role is very, very critical in an organization.
So from the client to the BA to the data team, right? So these are this is the entire chain, which, so this will also involve data engineers, maybe data modelers,
Absolutely.
all of that. Okay.
Absolutely, yes.
Now, once let's say the warehouse is ready, the reports are being created. Now, who communicates it back to the client or who helps them in taking the decision?
So again, I would say not everywhere the top leaders gets involved with client. They said do all that operations what they want. So most of the time it is either the operational leaders or the project manager or sometimes the business analyst who is playing the dual role as well. So they only go and involve the stakeholders, because at every point in time you need to involve stakeholders, because it is very important to buy in their feedback, get their feedback and buy in their consent before we proceed with the final output of the solution. Second is their major competency lies to bring in that culture, because you use a lot of technology, you use AI driven models, algorithm, prepare everything, predictive model, but unless and until people who works on the ground are confident enough to take that feedback and use it, is that algorithm is not going to flow. So it is the core competency that to of a business analyst to convince them, get the stakeholders at every point in time and get their buy-in, and also involve the people who are working on the ground so that they are also comfortable and rely on the output which is coming out and they can use it.
So the output, talking about the output. So how do you kind of demonstrate the output or the insights coming from the data? Because that is where the subjectivity might come in, right?
Right.
As I gave you the example of Netscape CEO. So now, how does BA remain neutral? BA or whosoever is demonstrating
Right.
remain neutral and maybe more aligned to the business objectives? What are the kind of so let's say a specific question. Can we make any kind of chart, or making a chart makes a difference? For example.
Definitely, because see, there's a phrase if I use is जो दिखता है वो बिकता है, a very common phrase across. So visualization is very important, and good visualization impress a lot people as well. Choosing a right kind of visualization is also very, very important, because you can depict the same information in a pie chart or in a bar chart, line chart. But if you have multiple categorization in your data and you are depicting, let's say 15 categorization you have, and you are depicting it in a pie chart which is giving you very small sectors, readability is not there. So it is very difficult to get the insights what we wanted to present. So yes, visualization and choosing a right visualization is very, very important, considering your audience as well. If you're not able to consider your audience, the consumers could be traveling and they are consuming your reports. The consumer could be in a senior age, they would be having maybe eyesight issues. So while traveling, while looking at those jazzy reports and dashboard, they'll not be able to comfortable look at the screen for longer period of time. So we need to think on all those aspects when we are designing the report and dashboard. And as I said, choosing a right visualization is very, very impactful, because it will tell a story in itself. You need not to explain it explicitly. You need not to voice it out. It'll automatically come up.
Correct. So there's another thing which many people understand, because the way news channels report the news, right? So they can present the data in a way that suits a particular alignment to a political party, right? So this is the way data can be presented. So how can we avoid it? Or how can leaders, like senior people like you, can help avoid these kind of a bias?
Okay. Definitely biases. I mean, we generally face all these things at every project, every organization. These things are very, very common. The core competency of business analysts is to be neutral and present whatever information is coming from our data as is. It should be like a mirror image. There should not be any massaging to the data, and that's how you will be true to your role, and to the organization, definitely. So forces will come, push will come to you, but you need to be steady. I know it's very difficult when, I mean, saying it very easy, but it is very difficult for the junior folks to, retaliate to that. It's very difficult. But yes, that's the core competency. And how you can do that is when you are very strong in your analysis, when you know what you have done is absolutely correct and there is no denial to that, and you always have to keep your managers in loop. If you get a support from your managers, buy-in from them, no one can force you to change that. So yes, biases needs to be tackled in a proper way, uh, to get a proper benefit for the organization from the data.
Okay. So this was from the project team side. Now let's look at from the client side. For clients to make proper, neutral, data-driven decisions, what are the roadblocks they have?
First is the data. Data has to be clean enough. One. Second, the mindset, the culture. Now, most of the people are not, very difficult to take them as is things when data says something. They come up with their own opinion. They wanted to use the same old strategy which they are using because they are comfortable. So building that culture is very important, and it is difficult as well. But somewhere we need to start. Um, if I say that an example, there are a lot of good organization we can see that they have used that change their strategy, they change their culture, the mindset, and they have improvised a lot. Whereas we have seen some of organizations like Nokia, I always quote it. Back then, I mean, Nokia was a leader. Almost majority of the stake they were having in Indian phone market, and they were having a monopoly of more than a decade. But within a span of 2 to 3 years, they vanished. Their competitor took up, their position very easily. It is because they didn't change the culture. They didn't improvise. They didn't realize that the market shift is happening. The Indian GDP was increasing, so people were willing to spend more. And they need to also improvise on the technology, the features which they were having in the product line. And then didn't align to that, and hence they fall back. And it's a very drastic fallback. Same way, building that culture is very, very important here. So slowly and steadily it'll work out. But yes, as a business analyst, we need to teach the customers as well that how it is going to benefit them. They are going to sustain in the market for a longer time. They are able to retain their customers. They will be able to improve their team's efficiency and productivity. So holistically, it is going to help them out. If they change or tilt a slight mindset of this.
Correct. There could also be a problem of if the data itself is conflicting. Right? That could also be a problem.
Correct.
So how do you deal with the conflicting data?
Conflicting data. Okay, now when one of my team member has created one report which says some numbers, and similar information I see in some other team members report, and they are contradicting, the numbers differs. So the first thing is I cannot rely on any of these reports because number are conflicting. So we need to get inside the numbers. We need to get inside the source where and try and identify whether the business logic which we have implemented is correct or not. First thing. Second thing is from where the data is coming. Actually, the source is same or not, or is it different? If it is different, then we need to correct that first, right? So the second thing is that because that will take a lot of time and effort because you need to come up with the whole infrastructure change. the data model changed. So that is the second step. People may say, why you don't check the source first rather than the logic? So it will have a huge impact on the effort and the cost, both the things. So that would be the second thing. And I guess then we can improvise it further. Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about the people who are involved in the entire set of decision making, or like creating the data for decision making. What kind of professionals we are talking about? So I think business analysts, data analysts, and data modelers, these are the people. What kind of skill sets do you need to help a client make a data driven decision?
So decision strategies are, being created by our top leaders, and it flows down. It then it goes to the operational leaders who decide how every department has to follow those objectives, because every department may directly or indirectly link with those, strategies, right? So we have to decide. And then comes business analyst role, where they support them to take decision, create strategies based on the market trend, based on the technology shift, based on the data driven insights which we are getting, because we analyze all that historical data and come up with the insights, right? All that. So the major competency is, first is the critical thinking. So we need to be critical on what all data is coming. We need to think on that. We need to ask question back to get the proper insights. Second is the domain knowledge. If you're not having a proper domain knowledge, you'll not be able to suggest things to your management or to the client. So as a business analyst, we have to have a domain knowledge where we are working. Third is technical skills. The technical skills are very important, because you as an requirement gather, or you will be closely working with the technical team as well, data warehousing team, IT people. So you got to be clear on one particular feature, how much time it will take to build, and what should be the output, because that also you wanted to test it, right? So that technical thing, skill set is very, very important. The fourth is the convincing power. The communication skill is very important, because when we are getting those insights, it has to be properly and concisely communicate back to the client or to the management. If we are not able to do that, we are going to miss out on the critical things. We may lose that opportunity, right? So these are the core competencies a business analyst should have there.
Okay. And what are the tools and techniques, including AI, how it is impacting the entire zone of data-driven decision making?
These days, yes, AI is creating a big impact. Everyone we see, they wanted to use AI and get the impact out of it. But I would say that if you have all those core competencies, you don't need AI. That could be a secondary step we can always think of. Okay. Or maybe if you really wanted to use that, we can use it as a first step, because AI may not be able to understand what is your requirement is or your problem statement is. Okay. One thing. So it may simply give you the problem as per whatever the model is behind, right? May not suit your requirement or problem statement as is. So yes, we can save some effort by just getting a draft of it and then improvise it on top of it. But what the challenge which I see is, people are considering it as a final output, and that is where it is making a problem for them, because you will get the output very quickly, but you're not able to sustain with that problem for a longer time in the in the organization. So we need to think on this. We need to improvise on that, how effectively we can utilize AI to our to get the positive impact. Basically, that is what I take. The key tools you asked, so there are Power BI, Tableau, Click. There are a lot of tools which we can use, And tools like Power BI also gives you a capability of using NLP there. If let's say some information is not there, we have not created any report, so you can ask your questions then and there using a simple English language, just like how we are typing in the prompt, giving the prompt to chat GPT and all, and get the answer. So these kind of a tool will give you the answers in a graphical manner as well as in a number manner, depending on the granularity of your question or your ask is. So there, these tools are very much in demand in organization. And today organizations are looking for those skilled people who can utilize this data, these tools, to get the insights of the data. Why? Because there's a tsunami of data in the in this whole corporate world, or you can say every one of us are creating data. Now, to deal with that, to analyze that data, we need those skilled resources. So this is very, very important to understand. Yeah.
So, based on your vast experience, if you were to give one advice to an organization who truly wants to become data driven, right, then what would be that?
First is shifting our mindset to get that change done. Shifting from our traditional way of doing business to the data driven business. Whatever data says, we need to consider that and also rethink on that. We need to ask questions on that to get the insight. One. Second, collect the proper data. If you're not able to get the complete data, there are a lot of redundancies in it, it is incomplete, you're not going to utilize that. It's just like a garbage in, garbage out. So the same thing. So data has to be clean and effectively collected. Third is utilizing of those BI tools to process this data, because human being cannot process it a huge amount of data, so we need those tools. So setup has to be, environment has to be provided, and it should not be only provided to only the top leaders. It has to be made available to the people who are working on the ground, because the mindset, the culture, the data driven culture we can only build when people who are working on the ground are able to relate with that and gain confidence that whatever insights we are getting from that particular report or dashboard or from the data, they can rely on and go ahead with that. So their buy-in is very, very important. So it should be a organization level, should not be for a set of people.
Right. So just following up on that, so there could be a possibility that the data driven decisions, okay, either it goes to too large extent and becomes analysis paralysis, or it goes to the other extreme. So how can people have a balance where it is still rigorous, but it doesn't fall into analysis paralysis? Because that could be a real challenge, real problem.
Exactly. This thing is we are also facing in most of our, in some of our project, not most. To deal with that, basically we need to ask, and we cannot simply rely on what data says every time. Okay, otherwise we'll be paralyzed, as you said. So we need to diagnose the historical data. If there is any problem already exists and we have taken a decision already, and whether it went in our favor or not, we can straight away take that. We cannot, we need not to even do the brainstorming again on that. Okay, that is one thing. So and taking a shift from from that diagnostic to predictive and prescriptive. So that way maybe we can reduce this kind of a situation. I won't say that we can completely avoid. At some time maybe we may see that, but yes, we have to be cautious that we need not to go and again get into that trap. We need to slightly and slowly shift to that predictive and prescriptive kind of a thing, analysis.
So you mentioned prescriptive analytics. Do you see predictive prescriptive being the future of or an organization being truly data driven, or there is something else which might happen in the future?
Uh, See, now AI is coming up, so definitely we can think of that. Yes, something may come up on top of that as well, but you never know. But for the time being, I believe that predictive analysis will tell you what is going to happen, what is likely to happen, and prescriptive being a combination of diagnostic, statistical, and predictive. It gives you the flexibility what we need to take the decision on. Okay, so that is, I believe, sufficient enough for the time being. But as the technology evolves, scenario may come up, new. So we may see some other things make up in future. But for the timing, I feel this would be sufficient to have.
Okay. So, anyone who is working in this field and they want to really see a tangible outcome based on the data, one advice for them.
Be critical to yourself, the output which you are producing. One thing. Second, you have to always consider your audience. What is their objective? What is their problem statement? What they wanted to handle, what you are delivering, whether it is giving them all the answers to their questions or not. Second thing. Third thing, think beyond the problem statement. You may get only one problem statement because that is currently in front of us. But as a business analyst, we also need to think about the other aspect, and that relatable aspects. If you get all those things as well to your management or to client, they will be most happy because they got out of the box things which they don't even expect, and to some extent they will be able to relate, because what happened is, who is giving you the problem statement, they are just looking at one side of the coin. As an analyst, you can flip that coin and get the other aspect as well, which could be very important. And that is where these tools like Power BI and all comes with a lot of AI driven analysis. You can analyze by clicking on something and they come up with out of the box analysis. Like for a case that a surname of an resource, how their productivity is, right? So that we generally don't even think of. I'm just given a very vague example, but you can utilize it in your own scenario. But all these things are very, very critical and also give you an edge. Management will look at you as an asset, not just as a resource, because you started suggesting that you started contributing to their that strategies, to their decision, and maybe come up with more critical questions which they don't even think of, which needs to be addressed at this point in time. So those things are very, very important as a business analyst.
Okay. So if somebody wants to enter this field, okay, where should they start? Somebody who is completely new, they want to enter this field, how should they start?
So first is the background. I mean, any domain people can come in this, but there are core competencies. There are few core competencies which they should have. One is the basic understanding of SQL database, which is very important, and the some core understanding of the core areas of DBMS, database management system. They need to understand the data modeling, the relational model and all that thing. Then visualization, very important, because people will not remember the report, the tabular report which you showcase to them, or maybe a summary of it. They'll only remember the graphs which they see, because that will remain in their mindset for a longer duration of time. They will simply say that, okay, in that graph, June month was showing a dip, 15%, 20%. They'll remember that, right? So that way, visualization is very, very important, and choosing right visual element to to depict your data is very important. So those things are very important to have. The fourth is the convincing part, the communication. Maybe at an initial stage you may not require that, but over the period of time, when you grow up in your ladder in your career, you need to have a good communication skill to to interact with your customers, to interact with your leadership, because being a business analyst, you need to gather requirement and also you need to provide that insights to the management. So that communication has to be very, very effective and precise. So that these are the, I guess, four key areas which they need to think of. Apart from that, curiosity, very important. You need to always ask questions. The one of the very important competency of a business analyst is asking question at the right time to the right people so that they can take right business decisions.
Wonderful answer. So, anyone after listening to this podcast, if they want to contact you, so how can they contact you? How can they reach you?
They contact me through my email ID. It is Priyank, Priyank dot aneja.03 at gmail.com, or they can reach out to me on my LinkedIn profile as well, and I'll be happy to answer them and guide them.
Great. So, fantastic. And thank you so much for coming here and sharing your inputs. So, I hope this was pretty useful. And anyone who wants to start your career in data driven decision making, this podcast will serve as a foundation knowledge for all of you. Thank you so much for being part of this episode. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you.